Well, here I have an example of the original screw, which I have robbed from the struts that I had in my parts boxes. That should do the job. Now I've got to figure out some way of holding that shaft firmly so that I can tighten that screw up. It was easy when the struts were out of the body. Right, I'll have to get them back out. This time, let's do it right. That's that. And of course now I've got this other set of struts here that I could compare for, to make sure I'd put this arm in the right way too, which of course I had. Finally, on the third attempt. Can go in there. Here's my spacers. 2 screws in the film cassette well. These are the pretty screws. In fact, these particular 2 screws are chrome plated, which is unusual. Normally they'd be nickel plated. Where's its mate? There it is. It's amazing how you can lose things on a small area of bench top, because it's got nothing to do with working in such a messy fashion as me. Get this spacer in position. It's not quite it. Not quite yet. You have to be very careful to make sure that the screw passes through the spacer washer, not just beside it. Otherwise you can rest assured it'll wriggle its way loose at some stage in the future and cause you grief. Why is that not going in? And holes not lining up. That's better. No arguments the second time. One at the top in the same position. It's almost in position. Here it is now. Alright, the 4 screws up nice and tight. Let's find out what happens this time. Now I should, by rights, be able to wriggle this door into position. there's quite a strong spring on the door of this particular camera, like the earlier cameras. This is an early version, or a fairly early version of the Type 010. That's better. Get that in place, wriggle that across. Get our hinge pin screw in place. And this time, with no obstruction from that screw head, the struts will pop up into position correctly, nice and square with the body, opens and closes nice and smooth. Job done. Just a shame I hadn't got everything done as smoothly the first time round. Four screws here hold the focus mount to the back of the front standard, and there are four screws from the front here that pass through the focus mount and hold the bellows to the back of the focus mount. That's the missing one there. Right, so now I've got to lift the bellows forward to meet the focus mount. Get one of those screws started. Yep, and it's diagonally opposite one. That's that. That'll hold all that in place now, and I can get the last two screws started. Now that they're all in place, do them up tight. So that's the bellows all in place, struts all good, focus mount neck, focus scale ring rather. With four screws. This one's a little bit unusual in that it has a recess for the heads of the screws in the focus scale ring. That was a feature that didn't reappear until we get to the Retina. I've got my focus scale ring back on. The four screws ran into a recess on the focus scale ring, which is a feature that didn't reappear until the Retina 3C models. Prior to that they had a beveled edge, and the screws were countersunk head screws that bit into that beveled edge. I'm just putting the shutter release back in the body here, and I'm going to close up the top of the camera. I'm not expecting any great complications at this point, but you can never tell. We know the camera had a problem. It's possible that because of that problem that something else is not quite right. It's possible the shutter release is not correctly adjusted, but we'll find out. Meanwhile, so far so good. So I'll get this in place. So I've got to hook that over there. Check that's in position. That all appears to be good. I'll put my advance knob on there. And there are two chrome screws that hold our top cover in position. And are they much of a muchness? They appear to be. That shutter release is jammed. There's something is not correct there. It's probably off its post, I would say at a guess. When I was lifting the cover on, I probably disturbed that. That's it. Get that there. That's better. Now the advance and rewind lever is not sticking out far enough there, so I know that it's not seated correctly. That's probably it now. I'm just rolling the sprocket shaft with my thumb, and that is all working very smoothly indeed. I wish they all worked as smoothly as that. That's good. Right, put my spanner on the film advance shaft inside the camera. Do that up nice and tight. That's that. The leather. Get the leather back on. I went mad last week and bought some more batteries for my camera. So previously I had a bit of a bottleneck sometimes when I was doing lots of videoing, and I couldn't get the batteries charged quick enough to keep up with the camera using them up. So now I've got 2 extra batteries, and it means that if I'm prepared for videoing, I should be able to swap in a good battery at a moment's notice. And if I actually watch what I was doing, I'd be watching for the warning light on the video camera to tell me the battery is just about exhausted, and I would choose a suitable time to stop recording and change the battery. But that would require being a bit more organised than I am. This is the depth of field scale here, which is not wanting to pick up the holes in the plate. Oh, one of the screws has. That's better. That's the base of the camera. Here's the top of the camera. Is anything left to go on here? The shutter release button. To the front of the camera, let's put the shutter back in. The arm that couples here to the shutter is exceedingly agile, and adept at falling back into the body so that you can't get the screw correctly positioned. Like a lot of these things, you only need 2 or 3 pairs of hands and everything will go very smoothly indeed. I want that focus forward so I can swing this out. That's better. Sometimes it'd be very handy to be ambidextrous. Alright, that screw's started. And run that screw right through. The screw's quite long. It runs right through that bracket and into that slot in the bracket behind it. So you have a threaded screw sliding in a groove, which is hardly an elegant engineering solution to a problem. The retaining ring is still in the camera, that's good. And I just need to make sure that my focus scale is aligned correctly with the line on the shutter. Check that the focus moves smoothly, and it does. Alright, give that one last little bit of torque to tighten that up. Check the alignment mark, that's still good. That all appears to work. and the camera opens and shuts, and the lens is nice and parallel with the film plane again. I'll give that camera a quick wipe over. I can see that the lens looks a little bit dusty, and I'll be at all surprised if I haven't managed to put a fingerprint on there. That looks nice. When the owner was dropping this camera off for repair, just before, he was saying how much he enjoyed using the camera and what a difference it was after I'd serviced it the first time, to have a viewfinder that you could actually see through. Although the viewfinders are pretty tiny, they're nice when they're nice and clear. They're no fun at all when they're covered in grime and dust, and you can only guess what you're looking at through them. Right, that one. Nice simple job. Pleased to have that out of the way. I never particularly like seeing cameras coming back again in comparatively short order. I suppose 4 years isn't too bad. Yeah, what have we got here? There's a little tear in the leather at the back there. I'm going to deal with that while I'm here. Just means it's probably hit something in the camera bag. Let's peel that back. Grab a bit of adhesive in there. Get most of that excess off. I'll just leave that to cure, to dry for a minute, and then I'll push that little flap of leather back down into place. You can see there's another scratch here and here, which looking at them, they cut through the polish on the surface, so they're probably something that's also happened in the last year or so. That should do. Let's roll that little flap of leather down, rub away the excess, and I'll just give that a little rub. That looks fine. You'd never know. This time I am done. Thanks for watching.